has been strung out today. Plenty of riders not enjoying their time. Going up the climbs, as you can see now, the main peloton is going to re-envelop that group of 4 riders who made their initial attempt to bridge over to the other 8. And there'll be a coming together. And as a consequence, we'll have just the 2 groups. This is the lead of Chaikin, a very formidable force at the moment involved in this group of 8. Just over a minute and a half up the road. Welcome back. Tour of Croatia. Stage 4, and it is already very interesting indeed. The main Queen stage, and the man in the leader's jersey, Giacomo Nizzolo, is going to have to work very hard indeed if he's to stay in that jersey, with another monster climb still to come on the way up to Učka into the mountains. And they've taken on 1 climb already today. There's 45 kilometers left. 29.9 of those kilometers will be spent on the last climb. The lead group, 2 minutes and 1 second up the road, containing the riders Sondre Holstenger, Alessandro Tonelli, Javier Megias, Artem of Chaikin, Doran Novak, Daniel Turec, Scott Davies and Brecht Daina, as we go past the Hotel Gvana Palace. Unfortunately means that we are not going to see the dog beach down at Crikvenica, which I'm particularly disappointed about, because I was looking forward to relaying all of the information about the fact that there is actually a bar that serves beer, ice cream, cakes and tea for your dogs. So almost 2 hours in the saddle for the riders now. They have navigated the initial part of the stage. Only just done under 80 kilometers so far, as our lead group of 8 continues that rapid descent down towards the flatter section of the day before the final climb. They've gone through towards the city of Rijeku, the principal seaport of Croatia, and it is from there that they will start to meander their way back up towards Učka and the major climb of the Tour of Croatia. It was the climb where it was all decided last year, and it's likely to be the climb where it's decided this year as well. Vojak, the arrival of today's stage, as the main peloton try and close the gap. And what in particular are you going to be looking out for today, Brian?
Obviously, Trek Segafredo, a lot of pressure on them. They're getting a little bit of help from Tinkoff, only 1 rider, but you can see all the kind of white and black jerseys, and really pushing hard, because this breakaway of 8 riders is a strong breakaway. With 8 riders in front, all working well together, over 2 minutes in front. They're not doing this for the red jersey of Nizzolo. Nizzolo will get dropped as soon as they start to climb this hill. But they have Arredondo. Arredondo started the day 1 minute 17 behind the red jersey. He's the team leader, but that'll be washed away as soon as they start this final climb. But the interesting thing is, in the breakaway of 8, the Adri Mobile rider, just with the red shorts, he is the current virtual leader on the road. He started 26 seconds behind Nizzolo. The other riders in the breakaway that are roughly, because we're basing it on who I think is a favourite today, and that's Arredondo for Trek. We have Scott Davis, the British rider riding for Team Wiggins, in his team kit of blue body, red sleeves, and he's 1:17, the same time as Arredondo. So is Turek from Cycling Academy. Ochevkin of Gazprom, 1 minute and 14 seconds. But the person that's doing a ride today is Novak from the Slovenian team, and an actual Slovenian himself in the front group, and he's at 26 seconds as we see a spill as we come into the town for one of the academy riders.
Yeah, it hasn't been a consistent tour so far for the academy. You'd say Daniel Turek, who was in that group of 8 out in front, will now have a little bit of work to do. Just see exactly what happened to him. Just misjudging that corner and clipping up on the curb, and it's a nasty drop on the other side there. He's done well to bounce straight back up. He's probably fortunate that it's grass on the other side of the wall. Daman Novak is the rider who is in the virtual leaders jersey. Interesting to see how he gets on. We talk about Julian Arredondo. The Colombian rider is, of course, the favourite today, as we see good crowds out once again here. And well, some of the stunning scenery that we've seen along the routes included many medieval castles. The Thras castle is this one. It's a castle that lies in the exact same spot as there was one built here from the Illyrian dynasties and the Roman time here as well. In the 17th century, this castle fell into decay. That was due to the receding threats from Venice and the Ottoman Empire, a relative time of peace ensuing over the next 250 years. So these 8 breakaway riders with 40 kilometres now to go, still protecting a lead of just over 2 minutes against Trek Segafredo leading the peloton and getting that minute bit of assistance from Tinkoff. Going to be very interesting to see today exactly what the form of Jesper Hansen's like. 5th on the Tour of Langkawi this year. He did win the Young Riders jersey at the Tour of Norway back in 2014, won the Tour of Norway in 2015, as there's another interesting angle taken into the corner. And some of these corners are catching the riders out, just coming in a little bit too fast. It's exactly the same corner that we saw Turek struggling with, and as a consequence, I think the man who's waving his flag there has become a little more animated than he was a few moments ago, just to send the clear warning signs out. Rijeka itself, a famous port city in Croatia and also home of the Croatian National Theatre. It was built in 1865, and another wonderfully impressive building that yet again shows a mixture of beauty and architecture that is married right the way through the Croatian landscape, and that we have witnessed throughout the whole of the tour so far. So preparation being made for that final climb of the day. Turek still battling away and just receiving a little bit of assistance there from the team car. Czech rider now trying to make his way up and grabbing a bottle there off the Bardiani car on his way through.
He's getting help from everybody at the moment. I think everybody's trying to help him in the cars behind, because everybody knows that you know, one more rider in this front group is going to make a bit of a difference if they're going to try and hang on to this 2 minutes before they hit this final climb, because they're going to need, I think, a little bit more than that if they're going to survive. But it's still in the balance, and it's Trek Segafredo doing all the chasing at the front. There is one rider from Tinkoff. You're right, they're thinking of possibly a couple of riders, Jesper Hansen and maybe Jay McCarthy, the Australian.
Yeah, Jay McCarthy would certainly be an interesting one. I think so much depends on Jesper Hansen's form. Had a spill earlier on in the season, hasn't looked as though he's quite back to his best, but he has the potential to be someone who could certainly set it alight today.
Yeah, you can just see this. You know, they're not overconfident in the riders, because they've sent only Sergio Paulino up towards the front. But the whole white and black machine at the front of the peloton is Trek Segafredo, and their intentions are just to bring these riders back as much as possible and allow the race to develop in the final climb, and hopefully Arredondo to do his best.
Still making their way then through Rijeku and towards the major climb of the tour, the final climb of the day that will lead us up towards the finish. Join us again in a few moments' time as we continue towards the Učka Mountains. Welcome back Stage 4 of the Tour of Croatia 2016. Trek Segafredo sitting on the front of the peloton here, trying to drive the pace along. Giacomo Nizzolo, fourth in line, the man currently sporting the leader's jersey, as they make their way through Rijeku and up towards the final climb of the day. Already there's been a fracturing of the peloton on the very first climb. They have come back together, but expect it to disintegrate once more as they make their way onto that final climb of the day. 1 minute and 53 seconds, the distance between the 8 breakaway riders and the main peloton behind. So we've said on paper that Julian Arredondo, probably the best climber in the race, and Jesper Hansen, depending on form, could be a real threat. However, plenty of questions over his form, and just wondered what you think of the main threats. I'll get Brian's words in just a few moments' time. Confirmation of this breakaway then: Holstenger, Tonelli, Megias of Cekin, Novak, Turek, Davis and Dane. And these riders currently just under 2 minutes up the road. Time to get the views from Brian Smith on one of Jesper Hansen's teammates. I just wonder whether you think that Sergio Paulinho, the Portuguese rider, could do something on the climb today.
It's going to be very difficult because he is one of the riders riding at the front of the peloton, so it looks as if they're using his experience. They've put him up to help out Trek Segafredo. As we said, it's only one rider. You know, they have come with only 7 riders left in the race, so Paulinho is the rider riding on the front, but it's down to Trek Segafredo. This is Rast, the big rider at the front. He's been pretty much riding on the front the last 3 days with the team of Dimension Data, but the team of Dimension Data are back in the next bunch of riders looking after Mark Cavendish, because not only you know, maybe 1 or 2 of them could have made it into this group, but they have to make sure they look after Mark Cavendish, so that there's opportunities in the stages coming up this weekend. So their job is to stay with Mark, look after him. Today it's all about this front group in Trek Segafredo, because they have got a potential winner. They've got a couple of cards to play. They've got Zoido and Arredondo, so that's why they've been forced to do all the working. And nice to see also the Active Jet team, the Polish team, you know, obviously you know, the first big year for them, getting involved in the chase as well.
That is the state of play, and those are a number of the contenders that we might be looking out for. A particularly interesting stadium on your screens here, the Cantrides Stadium. A distinctive appearance, situated between the steep cliffs, the remnant of an old quarry just north of the stadium, and the shores of the Adriatic on its south side. It's voted 3rd in CNN's list of the most unusual stadiums in the world, and you're getting a pretty good view there of why. The coastline, one of the main features yet again of today's stage, as the riders make their way through the 122-kilometre route into the Učka mountains up to Voljak, where we will finish today. And it is a group of 8 breakaway riders who have just under a 2-minute lead over this chasing peloton now, with Javier Megias having crossed the line at the second intermediate sprint line. Domen Novak in second place. So all of those bonus seconds and points have now been decided in the intermediate sprints. Just those points that are up for grabs over the finish line now. 31 kilometers to go, and the peloton have closed that gap now. Just under 1 minute and 40 seconds between the 8 riders out in front. One wonders just how much impact Turek's little spill had on the advantage of the lead 8, because they are now back together, but Turek went for a nasty little tumble. Just wonder what the possibilities of the CCC Sprandi Polkowice team are today, Brian, because presumably in their team meetings they're going to have had to decide a different approach potentially to this race. Down in numbers is going to make it very hard for them in the team time trial, and they already had probably a handicap in that particular event due to their status.
Yes, it's looking like that, and you know, they're not committing riders to the chase. They can see the onus is on Trek Segafredo. They tried to put a rider in the breakaway. He was actually in the chasing group, but they never made it across. They could have potentially have been 12 riders in front, but Trek Segafredo decided no, that's enough, and chased them down, caught them. So we have a situation where, you know, the peloton with the leader Nizzolo, Trek Factory Racing, are on the front in the white. They are starting to get some help, but the riders in orange, who are the defending champions, winning it last year with Peterski, wearing number 1, are just sitting back, because as you say, they've lost one rider already in the first stage. They are just sitting quietly, and we'll see them in the final climb, because obviously this is a big race for them and they want to try and win it again, but they're not committing anybody because they possibly believe they could have a big chance today. But it's all about conserving energy and having numbers on this final climb.
Numbers on the final climb, very important as we take a look at the man who picked up the 12 points, Artem Ovechkin of the Gazprom team, with Alessandro Tonelli coming through in second, picking up 8 points. The Bardiani rider, of course, riding for his teammate Nicola Bohem and trying to keep Ovechkin out of picking up the maximum points in those standings. And does actually lift Ovechkin up to 18 points, putting him 1 ahead of Bohem in the King of the Mountains jersey standings. So for now, the Bardiani rider has lost the lead. Taking a look at the back of the peloton very briefly before we come back up front. And a change in personnel to lead the pace at the front. Further Active Jet Pro Cycling team coming up front to drive things along. Had riders involved in the breakaway on a couple of days, Lukas Bodnar and also Kamil Gradek. As we go back up front. And good once again to see Team Wiggins represented in the breakaway, in the same way that we've seen the Cycling Academy team represented in the breakaway on all bar one day as well. And these riders learning their craft and just learning the ability to work together as a good group. As the hand goes up from Alessandro Tonelli. 30 people involved, according to my notes, in that little. They look more than 30 people. I reckon there were about 100, maybe 300 people involved in doing that. But
well, we've got a very international mix in the breakaway. 8 riders from different countries. Megias in the white at the front and the left from Spain. Turek, the Czech rider from the Cycling Academy in the black, who had that tumble. Cheshkin of Gazprom in the blue from Russia. We've already mentioned Scott Davis, the rider from Britain, riding for Team Wiggins in the dark blue with the red sleeves there. Novak from Slovenia riding for Adri Mobile. Tonelli, the Italian, riding for Bardiani in the green. In the whites, Holst Enger from Norway, and the Belgian Daine from Veranda Williams in the predominantly kind of black outfit. So no dominant force of nationalities in the front group of 8, but a good mix.
Now coming to the front to do his turn at pulling things along is Giacomo Nizzolo, which tells you its own tale about his pretensions on that leader's jersey today, doing some good work. But they're going to be working for Arredondo and seeing just what they can set up for him today. Gregory Ras, the Swiss rider, has been doing a lot of the pulling on the front, as Brian was saying, alongside Jay Thompson from the Dimension Data team at the front of the peloton. No real presence from Dimension Data today. They don't need to be driving the pace along at the front, but they do need to be preserving Mark Cavendish and getting him across the finish line for potential in Zagreb on the final day. It will see a very long way away at present, with a mountaintop finish still to come, a team time trial as well, before they can take on the final stage into Zagreb on Sunday. Well, the Willems team have really been enjoying life. Brecht Dene of Belgium making his way onto the back of that lead group of 8. Timothy Dupont currently lying in 3rd position in the overall standings after his 3rd place finish on stage 1, 2nd yesterday. The town of Novi Vinodolski, which was actually what you were seeing, those locals bedecked in green forming on the roadside. So this our lead group of 8 riders, still with a lead of around 1.5 minutes over the chasing pack, with 27 kilometers to go. Holstenger, Tonelli, Megias of Chaikin, Novak, Turek, Davis and Dana. And that lead now confirmed at 1 minute and 35 seconds as Giacomo Nizzolo, the sprinter who's won a couple of stages so far on this year's Tour of Croatia, drives things along at the front. He's got company from his Trek Segafredo teammates, and we also see the presence of riders from Tinkoff, Verve Active Jet Pro Cycling, and CCC Sprandi Polkovice sitting in behind. So just 6 kilometers, just under 6 kilometers until that lead group starts to make its way onto the final climb, as we go zipping past Joseph Gurney of the Czech Republic, involved in yesterday's breakaway. He's dropped back, potentially with a mechanical, possibly to do the bottle run though. We take a look here, sitting at the back of that group, several riders from the Wiggins team. So 4 kilometers until the 8 lead riders hit the base of the final climb of the day and start to grind their way up towards Volkov. We're going to take a break now. Join us as the fireworks start.
Bundesliga. With 4 games remaining, Bayern Munich travel to the capital, where if results go their way, they'll be crowned champions.
That's it, that's the opening goal!
But Hertha Berlin, still in the hunt for a place in Champions League, are determined to prevent it.
Oh yes! Marvellous goal!
Hertha Berlin versus Bayern Munich, today, live on Eurosport 2.
Welcome back. Stage 4 of the Tour of Croatia 2016. 5 stages last year, it's 6 stages this year, 2 still to come, the team time trial and then the final stage into Zagreb. But today is where the overall leader's jersey is expected to be mostly decided, perhaps not completely decided, due to the fact of that team time trial tomorrow. We're going through Optija at the moment, situated in the Gulf of Kvana, in a sheltered position at the foot of the Učka mountain. Optija, a popular summer and winter resort, as you can probably guess from all of the images that you've seen from Croatia over the past few days. This is becoming an increasingly popular holiday destination in the summer for people throughout the world. Trek Segafredo continuing to be the team that is setting the pace up at the front of the peloton at the moment, pursuing 8 riders involved in the breakaway, riding not for Nizzolo today but for Arredondo instead. 22 kilometers to go. sitting on front, driving things along. Trek Segafredo, they've had some assistance from a number of teams, including Tinkoff and Verver Active Jet Pro Cycling so far today. But they know that out in front, those 8 riders are just beginning to make their way onto the lower reaches of the big climb of the day and the big climb of the Tour. Situation up the road of the 8 riders is Holst Enger, Tonelli, Megias, Ovechkin, who is the man who's gone into the virtual green jersey at the moment with a 1-point lead over Nicola Bohem of Bardiani, Damon Novak, Daniel Turek, Scott Davies and Brecht Dana, and they are here just making their way onto that first climb of the day. Sculptor Carr produced The Maiden with the Seagull, popped here in 1956, one of the more modern pieces of art that you find along the Croatian coastline. So here the main peloton making their way onto the climb, 21.9 kilometers, and the moment where Trek Segafredo just saying, yes, can you please have a pull on the front there? Oh, I think I've done quite enough work for today. 1 minute's advantage. And, well, that young man should probably not have been out on the road at that particular moment.
Yeah, it's difficult for that motorbike to stop there as well, but yeah, nice to see some kids trying to get involved. So yeah, we're on to the climb. And Paulino's at the front and the right hand side for Tinkoff. Trek Segafredo have already done a very good job. They've been riding on the front, brought it right back to about 30 seconds as we turned that right hand bend. It's all uphill from now on, 22 kilometres, averages 6%. Pretty much some steeper sections in the middle of this climb, and it gets quite difficult towards the top, so a long way to go in this climb, but Trek Segafredo have brought it right back to about 30 seconds now with 20 kilometres to go.
So 20 kilometres still to go. As Brian says, it is all uphill from here, so that lead group of 8 with their lead now whittled down to just 25 seconds know that their day is all but over, and it's the jerseys, the very recognisable jerseys of the CCC Sprandi Polkowice team coming up towards the front to drive things along in potentially what will be a day for them. Giacomo Nizzolo, well, he's done his bit. He pulled things along on the front of the peloton for a while. Now it's just a question of getting up the climb. He knows he is not going to be in that red and white jersey at the end of today, and it looks like he's enjoying himself as well.
Yeah, 2 stage wins for Nizzolo, and you know, a second place, and he knew he had to be used up by his team now, so he'll just you know, ride up this climb. Still another possible stage win into Zagreb on Sunday, team time trial tomorrow, so Trek Segafredo, you know, you'll have to be used tomorrow, because if they take the leader's jersey with Arredondo, then you know, there'll be a battle. But we said this a little bit earlier, that CCC Sprandi Polkowice, the Polish team in the orange, they've just sat back, allowed Trek Segafredo to do all the work before this climb. Now they're taking over and setting the tempo in front of the peloton.
A year ago, it was Maciej Peterski who won on this particular stage. Few people expect him to emulate that performance this year, mainly due to the fact that the quality of climber is that much better. This is our lead group of 8, and we will soon be able to see there in the background the main peloton, who have now shut them down to just 14 seconds out in front. So it's a question of just time until these guys are reeled back in, and then it'll be where the real fireworks start. Where have the teams decided they want to make their move? Who's the more instinctive of the climbers? Will we see Arredondo fly to the front and try something? It'll come later on. It's not going to come with 19 kilometers to go, but for now, The breakaway is just about to be caught. Not the most aggressive of climbs, certainly not at the beginning stage, but an average of 6.3% is not to be sneered at, and certainly won't have been by the majority of the peloton. So, our attention fixed here on that chasing peloton. Further glances over the shoulder of Chicken will be quite glad that he won't have to make too much of an effort here, although with 20 points up for grabs for the person first across the finish line, it will throw open that King of the Mountains jersey competition, because Chicken only has 18 points. No points in the King of the Mountains category for the team time trial, but there will be a couple of third category climbs on the final stage, so it's going to be very tight at the top in that green jersey competition as we slip out the back of the peloton, where a couple of the CCC Sprani Pilkovica team are already struggling. One of them was involved in an attempt to bridge. That was Adrian Kurek and Lukasz Owisian, another Polish rider there, finding it equally hard. Well, we saw fracturing of the peloton on the way up that first category climb at the start of the day. We are already seeing some pretty aggressive fracturing, and this isn't even the steepest part of the climb today. So riders slipping away quickly in the early reaches of the climb. Out in front, Prolazak continues to drive things along. Just a few meters behind him, the main peloton making its way up to join them and drive along out in front. What would be your tactics on a timing of attacking here?
Well, there's still a long way to go on this climb. You know, most of the riders, you know, we're basing everything in Arredondo, who is the rider just behind the two Tinkoff riders further down the line. He's at 1:17, and so, you know, they'll be happy. They've controlled things. He's got Zoido to help him, so they'll be just waiting as long as possible, because, as I said, we've still got the steeper part of this climb to come. Still a long way to go, so it's about kind of hanging in there, and you know, it's just a kind of calm before the storm.
Calm before the storm, most certainly the case. Synergy Baku rider making his way along here. Maxim Averin of Azerbaijan, right at the back of the peloton. The road narrowing somewhat. Laurens de Vreese, the Belgian from the Astana team, is struggling out the back there. He was involved in that four-man attempt to bridge the gap between the peloton and the eight-man breakaway a little earlier on today. They make their way up towards Vojak on the Učka mountain, and this climb not becoming any easier. And for the second year in a row, it's the CCC Sprani Pilkovica team who are leading the charge on the climb.
Yeah, this is a very strong pace they're setting up, and you know, you see them going into these kind of hairpins and coming out it, so you know, just kind of kicking up a little bit. But this is an impressive pace. You just see a couple of the riders in the blue and the red from the Adri Mobile team from Slovenia. So Polish team, Slovenian team with the Russian Tinkoff team just behind, and then you've got the two riders Zoido and Arredondo from Trek Segafredo.
Arredondo just biding his time. The Colombian, as we've said, a class apart, a pedigree apart when it comes to climbing on paper. Can he put that into practice here, though? Won the Giro d'Italia King of the Mountains jersey back in 2014, now 27 years of age. His team have enjoyed great success on the Tour of Croatia so far, thanks to Giacomo Nizzolo, finishing first on stages 1 and 3 and second place on stage 2. Can they make it yet another very successful day for their team and propel Arredondo into the leader's jersey overnight. At present, the team that produced the champion last year, Maciej Peterski of CCC Sprandi Polkowice, are leading the pace, and it continues to be an aggressive pace that they're charging up here. Around 25 riders left in that lead group now. Out the back, some of the riders really beginning to feel that pace. Davide Muccelli of the Meridiana Carmen team, now the last rider, and he jumps out of the seat to drive things along. So many teams will have come in today's stage thinking, well, we do have a shot at the overall because of the close proximity of most of the riders with the overall lead after 3 stages settled by sprints, but also with the knowledge that all of those teams that aren't UCI Pro Tour teams or any teams that have lost riders so far, that the team time trial is going to be a very big ask tomorrow in order to defend that title if they do get themselves into the lead jersey. So plenty of questions being posed as a consequence by the smaller teams. And CCC Sprandi Polkowice, who we discussed a little earlier, might feel that their shot at overall glory has evaporated after they lost a rider on the first stage, and as a consequence they're going to look to just either grab a stage win or put enough distance between themselves and those chasing Pro Tour teams in order to take the team time trial out of the equation. Although that's going to be very hard indeed, because it's a long team time trial coming up tomorrow, over 40 kilometers, ending up in the coastal resort of Umag, particularly beautiful part of the Croatian coastline. 17 kilometers was passed moments ago. They're now inside 16 kilometers, and the first 5 kilometers of the climb negotiated. The toughest part of this climb though comes slap bang in the middle of it, and a couple of the gradients into the red. There's the man who won last year's race, just starting to slip off the back. Maciej Peterski, who won going up this climb 12 months ago, doesn't look as though he's going to emulate that performance this time round. Peterski really struggling and sliding away. Davide Muccelli has managed to survive, and shooting past him comes Prolazak, the man who was involved in the 8-man breakaway. So the defending champion looks as though he's having to just sit down and take things at his own pace. It might not be a bad tactic, we don't know. We don't know whether the other riders are going to be able to maintain that monstrous rate that they've got out in front, but at present things looking very poor for him. And Daniel Turek, another of the riders involved in the 8-man breakaway earlier, overtakes him and tries to battle his way back to rejoin the lead group.
Well, it was Peterski that was riding on the front since the bottom of this climb, and kind of split this group up. So they're obviously looking at you know, one of their other riders. They've still got 2 riders in this front group, so obviously Peterski isn't on the same form he was last year, but Tinkoff now taking it up in the front, believing in their rider McCarthy.
So Tinkoff might not be having as many options as they perhaps felt they would have had coming into this, but CCC Sprandi Polkowice certainly have plenty of options, as we see with Peterski flying out the back, Victor de la Part of Spain being one of them. 15 kilometers to go, and starting to apply some pressure on one of the tougher sections here, out onto the pedals. Tinkoff driving things along once more. Arredondo sitting there, calmly making his way up in around 4th place there, just sitting on the shoulder of Jesper Hansen, the Dane, looking very comfortable as well at present. And it is Felix Grosshatner, the rider from CCC Sprandi Polkowice at the moment. Little glance over the shoulder, we'll see that Arredondo's not going anywhere, and at present you'd have to say the Colombian's looking very relaxed indeed, and Jesper Hansen will be aware of that fact, that the Colombian is just biding his time. Further down now towards the back, Marko Pavlic of the Cycling Academy team, is just labouring away next to Michelli, and we also see Enrico Barbin of Italy from the Bardiani team towards the back. Best rider from the IAM cycling team, Jonathan Fumeux, the Swiss rider. Some people's outside hope for this one. He's got some very good climbing form in his legs in the past, and as a consequence, could be a bid here. But 2 hours and 36 minutes into the stage. Are you a fan of the shorter climbing stages? We've seen some ridiculous climbing stages, some would say, in the Giro d'Italia over the years, 235 kilometres long, with 2 all-category climbs and a couple of first categories thrown in for good measure as well in the Alps. Are you a fan of these shorter climbs, which leads to more aggressive and attacking riding?
Yes. I don't think in a stage race you need many stages over and beyond 200 kilometres. We've seen already today they were attacking right from the go, and on the first climb today it split to smithereens, and okay, it's come back. We've got about 20, just less than 25 riders in this front group. McCarthy, the Australian, is riding on the front, just behind Gross Hatter for CCC Sprani Polkovica, but Tinkoff are riding for that man in third place. That's Hansen. Nice to see a couple of the Wiggins riders in here also, Pearson and Davis. I think it's Richard Hanley third from the back for One Pro Cycling. So yeah, a very reduced front group, less options for them, but obviously Tinkoff have got a lot of confidence in Hansen today.
Plenty of confidence in Hansen. We were questioning just whereabouts his form was at present. He's sticking with it, and Jesper Hansen, 25 years of age, a player with plenty of potential, plenty of pedigree, great achievements in the Tour of Norway in the past, and also finishing 5th on the Tour of Langkawi a little earlier on in this season, but now into Europe with questions over his fitness and questions over whereabouts he is form-wise this season. Well, he's going to get a really strong test of them on this climb up the Učka mountain to Voljak, the finish, and especially up against a rider of the pedigree of Julian Arredondo. Going to be a fascinating battle between them. Jesper Hansen's form was good on the Tour of Catalunya recently. Rode very, very well for Alberto Contador, but can he do it for himself here today? Tinkoff with Jay McCarthy, Australian, out in front, leading the pace along at the moment, and this fractured peloton still maintaining 25 riders up the front. A little grimace on the face of Arredondo there, and Hansen's looking very relaxed indeed as things currently stand. 14 kilometres left to go.
The second leg of the Euro Cup final, Galatasaray versus Strasbourg, Wednesday, live on Eurosport 2.
Now inside 13 kilometres, still this group holding together pretty well as we look on it. Stefan Rebic of the team Felbermayr Simplenvels team sitting out the back. He's got a teammate alongside him, Marcus Eibiger, the two Austrians making their way towards the back of that. Riders once again going under the tree canopy cover of this climb. Now we'll get intermittent cover all the way up. Weather conditions conducive to climbing, not having to wear rain jackets, and there's a healthy breeze coming down the road towards them at present. Kroz, the rider from the CCC team, in second place, and a smattering of support as these riders make their way up this big climb of the Tour of Croatia 2016. It was the climb where everything was decided last year, and it looks like it'll be the climb where everything is decided this year. And we are getting to that mid-section where the gradient just becomes that little bit more aggressive, and riders are going to have to put in that little bit more work, and we'll soon get to see exactly what the state of play is as far as the big guns are concerned out front. So a good mixture of teams and riders involved up front.
Yeah, 24 riders in this group, just on the right hand side. You see Richard Hanley have won Pro Cycling, the young British rider, so riding well. At the back, 163, Muccelli, the Italian. So back to the front, and it's McCarthy, the Australian, for Tinkoff, just looking for a little bit of help. Still a long way to go, and nobody wants to commit to this early. So it's just a steady tempo from McCarthy. It's only 24 riders. This is where the race is going to decide. But Arredondo and Zoido are there for Trek Segafredo, just sitting back and waiting a little bit longer.
You're looking at this stage overview with the things currently situated as they are, as pictures start to jump a little bit for us there. With these pictures that hopefully we'll get back to in a few moments time, and there we are, back on board with it still being driven along at the front by Jay McCarthy. Just where is the ideal place to launch a telling attack? Do you think we're going to see Arredondo do anything inside or outside of the last 5 kilometres?
Still 12 kilometres to go of this climb, a long way. It depends. I think Trek Segafredo can wait. They've got a strong team. They've already shown it for the team time trial. I would think the onus is in the other teams. When you look at the team of Tinkoff, strong enough, but for the team time trial, I would think that shown in the performances so far, Trek Segafredo would be maybe stronger in the team time trial. So it's up to the other teams to take it on, especially CCC, Sprandi Polkovica and the Orange. They've got 2 riders in this front group, Gross Hatner and Delapart. And Delapart is a very, very good climber, but they've already lost a rider in stage 1. So I think for Trek Segafredo, they can afford to wait the longest in this front group before they start attacking.
Particularly impressed once again to see representation from many of the riders. I think we've got 4 or 5 of the riders who are involved in that 8-man breakaway, including Damir Novak, the Slovenian from the Adria Mobil team. He's around 7th or 8th at the moment in this group of riders. 24 of them currently there, and they are still trying to make an impression. And some of these riders who are just slipping towards the back, including Marko Pavelic, another Slovenian rider, just holding on there. They've taken on the first of those red sectors on this big climb, as we get a majestic overview of some more spectacular scenery. Victor Laparte, the rider from the CCC Sprandi Polkovica team, the second rider from the Polkovica team, sporting the number 3 jersey. You'll see him sitting just behind Felix Grosshatner at the moment, winner of the Tour of Austria last year, so he has pedigree in this sort of race.
Still 12 kilometres to go.
Yeah, they're not making too much headway at present, but still jockeying for position and still awaiting a move from anyone. Out in front, Jesper Hansen sits on the shoulder of Jay McCarthy in what has been a calculated move to try and blast things along. Radoslav Regina, the rider from the Adria Mobil team, has Damir Novak for company there, and impressive to see how many teams have managed to get a couple of riders into this break on the way up, just to give that bit of assistance to each other. They approach the last 10 kilometres of stage number 4. Tour of Croatia 2014. Tinkoff sitting on the front. Jay McCarthy of Australia pulling along their big hope for the overall jersey. Jesper Hansen of Denmark, and the 25-year-old looking comfortable, but looking very comfortable indeed as well. Just outside him, just on his flank behind him, Julian Arredondo, the Colombian from Trek Segafredo. And as we've said innumerate times, on paper Arredondo is the class act as far as climbing is concerned. It's just a question of whether he'll be able to produce that sort of form at this stage of the season. It'll be a very good barometer and a litmus test to see where he is so far this year. Man from I Am Cycling, Jonathan Fumeau of Switzerland, just making his way up alongside those lead riders. It is a superb coming together of the best climbers of this year's Tour of Croatia, and they're taking on one of the more beautiful climbs in this country, which is littered with just great roads for cycling. And as we've been seeing in repetitive days, that the scenery and the climate conducive to good riding. And just a little snipe on the right hand side here, one of the CCC Pogavica riders goes and attacks with the Team Wiggins rider alongside. A glance over the shoulder. First little attempted move being made here, and at present the Tinkoff team of Jay McCarthy and Jesper Hansen look as though they've got this one well in check and are bringing it straight back together.
Yeah, it just wasn't hard enough, Gross Hartner for CCC Sprandi Pogavica in the orange. And it was Pearson of Team Wiggins, but McCarthy, the Australian for Tinkoff, just brings it up, and it looks as if it's all over for him. So he's done a very good job over the last 4 or 5 kilometres, but it's left down to the rider from Denmark, Hansen, as we see splits starting to appear. So, you know, that acceleration has put a few riders into difficulty. Grosshartner just looking behind Pearson, just following the wheel. Hansen in 3rd place, Arredondo just a grimace there, but it's starting to whittle down this front group now.
11% gradient on this bit. Remember, it's a 6.3% average gradient. And to Jay McCarthy, who was driving the pace along at the front for Tinkoff, looks as though he could be one of the casualties from that particular move. Soldiering his way along to try and rejoin that group, Enrico Barbin. Look as though they might just be assisted by the gradient up in front. Sliding out the back here and all over the place. Maxim Avarin of Azerbaijan and the Synergy Baku cycling project just getting a little bit of extra mileage in the legs here. Their big test, the Baku team, of course, coming in the Tour of Azerbaijan at the beginning of May. As out in front, Arredondo swings wide. Jesper Hansen decides that he's going to spend a little bit of time behind him. Grosshartner looking to push things along once more, and an acceleration comes again, and the response is towards it. A little slow in coming through. Fumeau manages to tag back on, but once again you get a great demonstration from that overhead shot of just what's happening as far as stringing out that lead group. And from 25 they've been whittled down to around 15 and back out onto the pedals. Hard work indeed. A little flick of the head, wanting some support out in front there, Grosshartner, as we look further down. Croatian champion Emanuel Kiselovski beginning to feel the gradient himself here. Barbin going through the pain barrier, jumping out onto the pedals to push himself along, but the Croatian champion, who would have done this climb more than most, trying to find a way back. And well, this is looking very painful indeed for Avarin as he finds himself slightly lost. Now here goes Fumeau. Said that the Swiss rider from the IM team would be someone who could really blow the field apart with his climbing capability. He's gone very early here with 9 kilometers left to go. Look of real focus on his face as they hit an even bigger gradient than they were taking on moments ago. 14% now in the middle part of this climb. Said it was the trickiest part, and Sondre Holstenger making his way out in front.
But this is a rider who was on the breakaway. He wants to try and make it hard, and he's obviously spoken to Fumo, his teammate. Obviously Fumo has, just wants to ride on the wheels. Victor de la Part, the Spanish rider riding for CCC Sprandi Polkovica, was doing a bit of damage, but they've just kind of sat up ever so slightly, and Holst Enger is taking the advantage. You can just see how much they've sat up because the Kizilowski, the Croatian champion, has made it back. So still, we keep on saying there's a long way to go in this stage today, but Holst Enger is on his own for IAM, but it's just to keep the pressure on the other teams.
Prolazak, also a man involved in the breakaway, doesn't look as though he's going to be making his way back up front as Sondre Holst Enger continues to push forward. The Norwegian rider really pushing things along here, and he's opened up a neat gap over those chasing riders. A little bit of water on board. This is out the back. Prolazak from the Verandas Wilhelm cycling team involved in the breakaway managed to fight his way back after the peloton caught up with those 8 breakaway riders. And Sondre Holst Enger, the man who's now out in front, was also a member of that 8-man breakaway, and he's just putting some distance between himself and the chasing pack, but still a very long way to go on this final climb of the day. They have just under 9 kilometers left, and the Synergy Baku riders find their way back together to try and drive things along. Cycling Academy team have just tweeted that they've just gone past a member of their team, Daniel Turek, saying that he looks like a person who spent all of his day in the breakaway. Blank and exhausted face. Well, he may well be blank and exhausted, but that is not the expression that you would say is painted on the face of Holst Enger at the moment. It's relatively phlegmatic as far as expressions go, and he is just looking totally impassive, soldiering away, pulling out to 20 seconds in front of the chase group, and the gradient ramps up again, and the first look of expression there, a real grimace as it kicks up to 16%, and he continues to stride forward.
Yeah, just as I look behind, just as they set his own tempo, you know, a good fast man in the in sprints and things like that can get over some good climbs. So he's just been used up, keeps the pressure on, and as I said, this group of 24 that was together a few kilometres ago, more and more riders starting to disappear out the back of this group, and we're down to about 16 riders.
16 riders left in a group that originally contained 24, so 8 fallen by the wayside. 8 kilometers to go, and up the road, Sondre Holst Enger still pulling things along and still trying to split this group further apart. Kirill Podstynikov of Russia, the Synergy Baku rider who leads the way. Back up with Holst Enger then. Still managing to pull further clear of that chasing group. You take a little look behind him and you'll see that they're now starting to fight back a little more, but the gradient stays aggressive. And here are the group of riders who have rather lost their way. It includes Jay McCarthy, who put on so much effort for Tinkoff at the front, and Crikvenica as well has a bit of company, still soldiering on and trying to make his way up. Alessandro Tonelli, another rider who was involved in the breakaway. The overhead shot will give an idea of the gap between Holst Enger and that splintered group of 15 riders trying to chase him down, and they're closing the gap now. But his job, will he feel his job is done, or will he be maybe put up the road again a couple of times to just try and drag things apart once more?
I'm looking at his teammate Fumo is down the back of this group, so it was a strong ride by Holst Enger, but he's given it everything now, so he'll really pay for it over the next couple of kilometres now as we get into again some of the steeper sections of this climb.
Kirill Pozdinyakov of Russia, and Synergy Baku now takes up the front of the group as Holstenga slides down. His teammate is making his way back up towards the front. And interesting to see there, Julian Arredondo looking as though he's struggling somewhat, but all of the riders will be beginning to feel their own forms of pain here on this 16% gradient of the climb. The one thing at the back of their minds is, because of the average gradient of 6.3, they know it's going to become a little softer in a few moments' time. Here is Holstenga, who's now slipped back to be joined by Marko Pavlic. They're out the back of the group. Holstenga, well, will he be able to fight back and rejoin those lead riders once more? A fine effort from the Norwegian, and here is his reward, a flatter section to take on, and he's back out of the saddle to try and rejoin the group up in front. But you can see how much effort he put in, and the distance already between himself and that lead group now down to around 12 riders, and still out in front it is Pozdinyakov who's leading things along. So this is where the supporters have obviously congregated. Plenty of flares on display. Not sure that the riders will particularly enjoy having to suck in any flare air. Fortunately, the wind direction looks as though it's going in the correct manner, although that man running along in front of the group's not going to be assisting with the respiration. Jordi Simon of Spain and the Verver Active Jet Pro Cycling team now sitting at the back of the group. Fumo is the man just in front of him, and a little wave of the hand there of irritation from Marko Pavlic towards that supporter, suggesting that the flares are not welcome. Up in front, still the pace being set by Synergy Baku Cycling Project's Kirill Pozdinyakov of Russia. Arredondo, as he has done for most of this climb, sitting in 4th place. Jesper Hansen slipped back down to 8th at present, and you've got Victor de la Parte of Spain sitting just a few further back. He's got a teammate in the shape of Felix Grosshatner of Austria up there as well. Out the back of the group, Fumo sitting alongside Jordi Simon of Spain. Daniel Pearson, the first of 2 Wiggins riders sitting in that group. Riders looking a little more comfortable now with the pace and with their numbers. Approaching the 3-hour mark with just over 5 kilometers still left to go. One thing we know for certain, it's going to be one of these riders who pulls on the leader's jersey come the end of the day. Jonathan Fumo involved in a high-speed crash in yesterday's stage, so perhaps not so surprising to see him somewhat laboured today, as we once again catch up with the Croatian champion Emanuel Kieselowski of the Meridiana Carmen team. There, inside 5 kilometers then on this final climb of the day, and I'm not going to say it gets easier, but they have now dealt with the worst of the gradients. Still plenty of time to make that telling attack and pull themselves to stage victory, perhaps overall victory. depending on which rider it is who manages to get across the line in first place, whether it's one of the riders from one of the bigger teams who will undoubtedly have the potential to go through and do well in the team time trial as well tomorrow. So much resting on that additional element to this year's race. Oh, Jordi Seaman just missing out on picking up a bottle of water on that last exchange. Arredondo still sitting really well placed. Marcus Eibiger, rider from Felbermayr Simplenvels, was with Stefan Rabic a little earlier on. Rabic has now dropped off. Eibiger, the rider, left. Another rider with great climbing calibre. In those final 5 kilometres, looking for the moment where someone strikes. Still a long way to go, but it's from this point onwards that we're going to be expecting perhaps for an attack to occur. "13 riders in the lead as they now take on a false flat, which will come as some welcome relief. Round the bend goes Kirill Pozhinaikov of Russia, and Synergy Baku still leading the way, still driving things on, and Jordi Simon still the rider out the back alongside Eibiger. Actually, a rider who's now at the back is Radoslav Rodzina, the Croatian. Good representation for Croatia. Jesper Hansen has slipped worryingly for him far down the pecking order, and try to stick on the tail there of Victor de la Parte, with Grosshatner still out in front. Sweeping left-hand turn to take them on to the last reaches of this climb, and small acceleration coming from Enrico Barbin as he looks to apply some pressure on the lead group. Things looking quite relaxed, and Jesper Hansen has pulled himself into a better position. Deterioration of the road surface to be expected as they meander their way up this climb. 4 kilometres now left to go, and still no telling attack has been made.
I tell you, there's something here that Synergy Baku are very confident in their man. Vasina is sitting just behind his teammates, ridden the last few kilometres, so you know, the teammate of the Russian rider in front, you can just see him, 133 Vasina, as he just kind of pulls off now, so the attacks start to come now.
Felix Grosshatner looking to attack, and a little glance over his shoulder as he accelerates away. Arredondo sits in second and doesn't look as though he's too comfortable with letting this attack get away. Pulling over to the side of the road, that is just a little too much, exactly. Chewing through the gravel and the leaves to allow someone to take it on, and Grosshatner decided that was a good time to strike and move forwards. Little glance over his shoulder. Once again they are back together, and the pace being forged on the front. Grosshatner has a little glance down at the handlebars. Payet meandering all over the road at the moment, and this group being driven along. Several riders finding it hard to keep up with the pace, including them Eibiger out the back, and we also see Domen Novak. He's done so much breakaway riding and climbing today. Felix Grosshatner so dropping down.
Zoido now taking on at the front. It looks as if Arredondo hasn't got it in the legs today, so Zoido, the Austrian rider from Vasina, and just in the third place Victor de la Parte. So it looks as if Hansen just trying to struggle onto it, but Zoido looks nice and comfy here.
Zoido looking very good indeed. Has another little glance over his shoulder. Payet is doing very well indeed. Parte, I should say, Victor de la Parte, the rider in the orange of CCC Sprandi Polkowice. He's looked comfortable all the way up this climb. Zoido just presses the earpiece in, wants another little chat to see exactly what's going on behind him. Hansen, as you can see, struggling to keep up with that lead 3 now. Another glance over his shoulder to see if he can get any assistance. And that remaining group down now, falling away. Jonathan Fumeau doesn't look as though he's going to be involved. Daniel Pearson dropping out the back as well, as does Grosshatner. And you can see the distance now that has grown between the different groups, and we've got Arredondo dropping out the back of that group. So Hansen just still hanging on in there alongside Radoslav Rogina of Croatia. 5 riders out in front.
Yeah, we've got Vesina of Synergy Baku, Zoido for Trek in the orange. You've got Victor de la Parte, the Spanish rider, just trying to hang on to the 3 in front is Hansen from Tinkoff, and the rider from Adria Mobil, the Slovenian team, and that's Regina. But it looks as if the 2 riders have now been distanced with 3 in the front. So Vesina has been has his teammate, he's been riding well in the front, so they've obviously been confident in him, and he looks strong now.
Looking very strong indeed, and Hansen, with a glance over his shoulder, knows that time is being lost here. The one factor that might play into Hansen's favour could be the fact that his team will have a stronger team time trial tomorrow, almost definitely, than the Synergy Baku cycling project team, and as a consequence, Matija Kvasina, who might be going into the overall leader's jersey overnight, is going to struggle to hold on to it tomorrow. Always had potential as a climber. He's looking very relaxed indeed, but Zoido, I think, is more of a concern out in front alongside Victor de la Parte as well, the Spanish rider. These 3 look as though they're going to be the ones that can contest the win as we go further down and see some of the riders who've been thrown by the wayside on what has been a very brutal climb.
Yeah, this is Daniele Ratto, a rider that's won a stage of the Vuelta in the past, riding now for Androni, so obviously being distanced, but you know, further up the climb we have got 3 riders in front: Zoido, Vesina and de la Parte.
They're ahead of these 2. Radoslav Rogina of the Adria Mobil team, and from Croatia alongside Denmark's Jesper Hansen of Tinkoff, and they are trying to battle here to re-find contact with the lead 3 riders. Hansen out of the saddle to try and pull himself up with Ricardo Zoidl, Victor de la Parte, and also Matija Kvasina, the Croatian rider. It'll be great for the Tour of Croatia if they could see one of their own get across the finish line in first place. It's a big ask, though. He's got some excellent company alongside him at the moment: Spain's La Parte and Austria's Zoidl.
Last year's runner-up, the explosive Nick Kyrgios, is back in Estoril. This time, can he go all the way? ATP Tennis from Estoril, Monday, live on Eurosport 2. La Doyenne, the monument in the Ardennes. The peloton's packed with aces, ready to write the final chapter in the Spring Classics. The Liège-Bastogne-Liège, live tomorrow on Eurosport 1.
Ricardo Zoidl comes to the front to try and push things along. A little glance over his shoulder will let him know that Hansen does look as though he's perhaps consigned to the fact that he's not going to catch back up with this lead group. Probably about 10-11 seconds between Hansen and Regina and the lead 3. So Hansen tries to drag things along once more. Inside 3 kilometers to go, so still plenty of room for them to make that gap. It's just how much energy will be expended in bridging the gap itself. Now inside the final 2 kilometers, and Hansen tries to put the hammer down once again and drag things back up, but Matija Kvasina is driving things on out in front, and these 3 working together well at the moment.
Yeah, Vasina has got everything to gain here. He has 51 seconds in front of the two riders he's with at the moment, Zoido and De La Parte. So he's in the driving seat. It does look as if he'll be pulling on that jersey, because I can't see him in the last 2 kilometres losing 51 seconds to the two riders in front. So it does look as if it could be a good day for the Synergy Baku team in taking that red leaders jersey. But then again, who's going to take the stage?
It would be a great day for the Synergy Baku team. It'll be a great day for Croatia as well, if he's able to do that. It will be, well, just about the perfect outcome for Croatian cycling if they can have the man in the leader's jersey going into the final 2 stages. Vasina on the left of your picture in the Baku, just Baku Synergy Baku kit there. Sitting alongside him, Victor de la Parte of Spain in the orange colours of CCC Sprandi-Kolgodice, and then up in front, Trek Segwefredo, once again represented towards the end of the stage. Ricardo Zoidl of Austria, the man riding there for the Trek Segwefredo team, and Zoidl probably the second string climber as far as their starting team was concerned, but Julian Arredondo, the Colombian, just unable to deal with the pace that's been put on the front by, ironically, his teammate. So Tinkoff up against Trek, up against CCC Sprandi Polkovice, up against Synergy Baku Cycling. At the moment it is Synergy Baku Cycling, Sprandi Polkovice and Trek Segwefredo who are leading the way. Still can't quite see the distance back to Hansen, but he is, I think, he's going to have to work very hard.
Not that far at all. And the rider he's got with him, Regina of the Adri Mobile team, he only started the day 26 seconds down, so he has to try and hang in there, because if he hangs in there, he could be sitting possibly second overall. So Hansen putting a big effort and comes back to the front. So we get 3 riders in this front group of 4 as Regina starts to struggle a little bit. 3 of these riders started the day at 1 minute 17. One of them started at 26 seconds. That's the rider at the front, the Croatian rider riding for the Azerbaijan team, Synergy Baku, Vasina. Behind him in the orange, you've got Victor de la Parte, the Spanish rider, and then Zoido in the colours of Trek Segafredo in the white and black. And joining them now at the front, Hansen of the Tinkoff team.
Another Austrian, Marcus Eiberger, is struggling somewhat now, a little further back down the hill. I should probably describe it as a mountain. Zoidl, former national champion, now leading things on out in front, and Hansen, having made that effort to come back, is now struggling to do so, and we can see that Mattia Kvasina is being dropped as well, and Zoidl driving away from De La Parte, and it looks as though this could be the decisive move being made by the 28-year-old.
Yeah, the call has come from the car. They knew that Vasina was just riding for time. He just wanted to ride as hard as he can, because he did have a 51-second advantage on Zoido and Victor de la Parte. But, the onus now is on Zoido. He needs time. I don't think he might get to 51 seconds today, but he has to take some time with this team time trial tomorrow.
Well, he definitely will feel that he has the capability of taking more time on the team time trial tomorrow. And Zoidl is going to make this a very good tour of Croatia indeed for Trek Segwefredo already after just 4 days, if he can come across the line in first place. A little glance over the shoulder. 2 times Austrian road race champion. He's been the national time trial champion as well. Won the GC in the Tour of Austria back in 2013. Now in his 3rd season with the team, and he is flying away at the front. Behind him, Victor de la Parte, unable to respond, and that's given the opportunity here to Matija Gasina of Croatia to try and bridge that gap. Hansen up ahead of this man, Radoslav Regina, who's currently lying in 5th position on the stage. The Adria Mobile rider is going to post a pretty decent finish if he can keep going. They're into the last stretches of today's stage. Zoidl inside the final kilometre. Back out of the saddle and trying to drive ahead. He's got his team barking orders into his ear, telling him that he just needs to keep on pushing. If he does keep on pushing, he's going to be able to put quite a big hole between himself and the main rivals for the overall. Jesper Hansen of Tinkoff, finding it just within his power to bridge that gap back up to those two riders who are still hanging on in there desperately, Kvasina and De La Parte, but neither of them were able to respond to this man's pace out in front. Ricardo Zoidl of Austria and Trek Segafredo inside the final kilometre and marching his way towards victory. Maciej Kvasina wants to make sure that he's wearing the overall leader's jersey come the end of the day, which will be a very proud day for Croatian cycling, although it's doubtful Synergy Baku Cycling Project will be able to hold on to that overall jersey in the team time trial tomorrow, especially when up against the likes of the Pro Tour teams, in particular this one, Trek Segafredo, who've come here in phenomenal form and they are being rewarded. Giacomo Nizzolo with 2 stage wins already and a 2nd place, and it looks as though that's going to be added to by Ricardo Zoidl this afternoon. Kvasina looks to try and push himself on once again. A little glance at some of the supporters who've made their way up here towards the last few hundred meters to watch the riders come in towards the finish here on the Učka mountain. Helicopter blowing the leaves up into the riders, which won't probably be that popular, and blowing over some of the advertising hoardings as well, which is going to make it particularly difficult for the bigger groups of riders when they come up. Hansen once again trying to bridge the gap up on the other two, but out in front Zoidl makes his way towards the finish. The Austrian began his season at the Challenge Mallorca and now looks towards riding into his first stage win and also putting himself in prime position to take the overall. Last year it was Maciej Peterski who won on this mountain. This year it is going to be Ricardo Zoidl. Last year Maciej Peterski was the man who ended up in Zagreb as the winner of the 2015 Tour of Croatia. We will have to wait and see what happens in the team time trial and then the final stage into Zagreb on Sunday to see whether it is the same case in 2016. The riders who were involved in that big group who took on the start of the climb, 24 of them in total, whittled down to 16, then down to 5, now down to one man on his own. Ricardo Zoidl, the Austrian, making his way towards the finish line for a handsome victory here on the Učka mountain in Croatia. Zips up his Trek Segafredo top and crosses the line to celebrate victory in 3 hours and 17 minutes, and we now need to watch the clock and just see how much time he's put into the man currently lying in 2nd place, Maciej Kvasina. Remember, he's picked up 10 bonus seconds. Kvasina will pick up 6 if he comes home in 2nd place, but that ticker is still going. He's got 22 seconds. Looks as though it could be up to around 30, roughly 27 seconds. Take away another 4, so he'll have a 20-second disadvantage over Kvasina going into the team time trial, but that's something that Trek Segafredo will feel very confident that they can take off Synergy Baku Cycling in tomorrow's team time trial. Regina comes across the line in 5th place. Hansen was in 4th, and in 3rd, Victor De La Parte. They continue to come across the line. Team Felbermeyer, Simplon Vels, Marcus Eiberger is the next man across the line. And we've also got the second of the CCC Sprandi Polkowice riders, Felix Grosshatner of Austria, another Austrian coming across the line here. Fine efforts, just 1 minute and 20 seconds down on the leaders.
From Austria.
Good ride there from Team Wiggins. Daniel Pearson was one of the riders who was up the road there, and now we see the man who was expected to become in 1st position, Julian Arredondo, finally making his way across the line. Here's Zoidl's move. and in the end it proved too much for everyone else.
Yeah, that was a brutal finish, hard final kilometre, and hard climb. Climbed all the way from the coast, and a good win. They deserved it. They rode today, brought it all back together, sat back, especially in the last kilometres. Sat back, let Vasina do it. He knew he needed time, got some time, not enough to take the leader's jersey, but it might be enough to take the overall at the end on Sunday.
Here's the man who has won stage 4 of the Tour of Croatia. Stage 4 of 6. He hasn't put himself into the overall lead, but Ricardo Zoidl has put himself in a very promising position indeed, and he has continued what has been an outstanding tour so far for Trek Segafredo. Collapsed over the line in exhaustion. It was a brutal finish, and riders will still be making their way across the finish line for quite some time to come. Once again, plenty of stunning scenery has been taken in along the route, and we can see a little more before the conclusion of today's stage. There have been the Grobnik Motorsport racetrack, the Ryšňák National Park. Used to be one of the places where you could find lynx in Europe, but that ceased unfortunately back in the 19th century, where they were hunted to extinction in this particular part of the world. Plenty of castles and villages and towns we have passed along this part of the Croatian Riviera. We've seen structures of architectural beauty, and we've also managed to see some top quality cycling as well, and it was punctuated by the performance of Ricardo Zoidl of Austria, who crossed the line out in first position. He was the man coming home in second from the Synergy Baku cycling project. Maciej Kvasina of Croatia, who will be going into the overall leader's jersey, but will his team be able to keep up the pace in the team time trial tomorrow? It is a very challenging team time trial course. I guess a lot, Brian, will depend on how much this particular stage is taken out of the riders, because only teams of 8, some of them have already lost riders. It's going to be tough.
Especially after a brutal finish of a stage like this. Okay, it was only short, 122 kilometres, but it was a hard climb. It does look as if Vasina has only got about a 28-second advantage over Zoidl. And I would think that, although taking nothing away from the Synergy Baku team, it would be difficult to hold that on.
There is confirmation of today's stage time. Zoidl from Kvasina, De La Parte in third, Hansen, Regina, then Ivica Grosshatner, Novak, Davis, Scott Davis there coming home in ninth, very respectable from him. Julian Arredondo battling over the line in 10th position, but the Colombian really did find it very hard work out there today. Where does that leave us overall? It does mean there's confirmation that Maciej Kvasina of Croatia will wear the leader's jersey for his national tour. A very proud moment tomorrow going into that team time trial. Ricardo Zoidl is in second place, just 19 seconds behind Radoslav Regina, another Croatian, in third, and Victor De La Parte is the man currently in fourth position. But it does mean, as a consequence, that Trek Segafredo will really fancy their chances after already having such a fantastic tour of Croatia so far. 3 wins from the 4 stages. They will feel confident that they can end in Zagreb on Sunday with the leader's jersey.
La Doyenne, the monument in the Ardennes. The pelotons packed with aces, ready to write the final chapter in the Spring Classics. The Liège-Bastogne-Liège, live tomorrow on Eurosport 1. Last year's runner-up, the explosive Nick Kyrgios, is back in Estoril. This time, can he go all the way? ATP Tennis from Estoril, Monday, live on Eurosport 2.
Lowerberg, so a few flat roads in